And we are live. James, it's great to have you join us. I'm trying to think. The last time I saw you would have been at Allen's.
Yeah, I think it was. It seems like an age ago, to be
Oh,
honest.
seems like last season, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. Mercifully, the season has eventually came to an end. Um,
Well, for everybody else, but obviously for us, the Bandits, we were finished even before the end of September. Well, we didn't even make it into September, did we,
I
for
don't
the
think we did.
Bandits?
The Bandits didn't. No. Just yeah, just the way that the season worked out, unfortunately. But we fulfilled our fixtures, and
Yeah.
that I dare say not the season that everybody hoped for. Yeah, obviously when we first started doing these, we were
Mm.
riding fairly high at the time. All
Yeah.
the guys were going well. We didn't have any injuries, and then all of a sudden the injury bug hit and riders lost form and things like that. But hey, there's always next year.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the ones that impressed me certainly at the start of the season was Reggie.
Mm.
He was unbeaten, wasn't he, for about 3 weeks?
Yeah, or it wasn't many riders beat him. I was looking at the. I've been doing my usual end of season rider reviews and stuff like that, and I usually
Yeah.
look at the stats and statistics and try and kind of take out the tasty bits of that. And actually, I'm sure. Don't quote me on this. I'd have to actually. I don't have the sheets at hand, but I'm sure Jai Etheridge was only just behind Chris Harris in the home averages, and it was like, and I'm sure it was over 10 that he averaged at home. If not, it was a very, very high 9. You know what I mean? It was averaging at home in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah.
Once we lost him, I think that was the sort of the turning point of the season, really.
Yeah, and it was it's obviously it turned out that the first actual defeat he suffered was at the hands of a very good friend of ours on this channel, Lee Complin, wasn't it?
Was it? I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah,
To be honest.
that was his first defeat was when Lee
Right.
Complin managed to get the better
Aye.
of him.
There's a pub quiz question for you.
Yeah, it was because Lee was really fired up. I think he was top scorer for Newcastle that night. But
I remember
it's yeah,
it was a night that night. It was very much in his sort of wheelhouse. I remember the meeting, but I wouldn't have
yeah,
known that who the first man to defeat Jai was. But
yeah.
yeah, he was riding well. And as I say, looking at his numbers for the season, I'm sure, as I say, the only guy with a higher average at home was Chris Harris, which I mean, there's not enough. There's not enough that you can say about him. The way he's been this year, he's been fantastic.
Absolutely, but I mean, how do we sort of balance between the fact that yes, we didn't make it very far in the Knockout Cup, we didn't make it to the playoffs when it looked like at one point we were dead cert for that,
Looked a certainty early on in the season, I would have said.
And how do you balance that with the fact that Newcastle fans, they've no Speedway, and Edinburgh are struggling now for a stadium. Although I always kind of suspected that Armadale would be keeping going for a while
Yeah.
because there's no rush to knock it down and build this superstore or whatever they're going to build there.
I think that the fact that they've been able to, get another year at Armadale for Edinburgh, I think is massive, because I think that had they, the usual thing about taking a season out and finding things like that, we've heard these stories a lot before, and ultimately the ending is nigh on always the same. Wow. And I think that the fact that they've got that that sort of lifeline, as it were, with a view to getting, obviously, securing a site and buying a site and building a stadium in turn for 2024. I think it maintains that sort of continuity, and I think that is absolutely paramount for them. I think that any other outcome would have put the future in major doubt. I feel personally, history being what it is, and if it's taught us anything.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, you've only got to look at my second favourite team, just behind the Bandits, are the Swindon Robins, and my mum was telling me that it was on the local news that they are looking at new sites, but as you say, the fact that they're no longer at the Abbey, and
anyway, that was a situation. I mean, I don't want to speak out of term, and I won't say anything that I shouldn't, but I can't help but feel that, you know, there was someone wasn't telling somebody the full story, and I think that's all we can say about that, to be honest. But yeah, the whole thing didn't sit well with me at all. But however, we move, and hopefully the Robins do secure a site, get another stadium, and they're back up and running as well.
Absolutely. It's just a shame it's not a Blunsdon, because that was a great track. Do you know? Well, it was the track I went to see Andy Silver.
Right.
I'd never seen him ride at Berwick. That was the first time I ever saw him. Still Berwick track record holder when I saw him riding at Swindon. He was fantastic. John Davis.
Oh yeah.
Who had a van with a big picture of Linda Lusardi on it. now, do you know who Linda Lusardi is?
I'm aware of her.
Was. Yeah, and also obviously Jimmy Nielsen, Brian Carger, Peter Nallin, and a few others that, you know, like the whole, and obviously Lee Adams really came on strong when he 1990. He 89 he was with Paul. 1990 he was with the coastal Swindon Robins.
Long association with the, of course. He was
brilliant for them.
Yeah, cracking rider, brilliant rider in his day, to be honest.
But you mentioned the obviously having Chris Harris, and we have, courtesy of Graham, we have some footage of Chris Harris, which I feel I should share with the viewers. And do you know what we've already got? Well, according to this, there's 10 people watching us, so you know that's good going.
It's a start.
Well, absolutely, and also, by the way, you remember I completely ballsed it up at one of our previous live chats by saying at least we managed a win in Heat 8 against Redcar in the Cup. Yeah. And we watched all the video, and then it stopped just as the tapes were about to go out.
Just the tapes were up. Yeah.
That really pissed me off. I must admit, I was really, because you know, I've been doing this now for the last 7 or 8 years. You know, I should be able to put these things together. So anyway, first of all,
you're good at it now.
We're getting better. You know. I mean, the thing is, you know, we're talking about riders of the season and all that kind of stuff and heats of the season, you know. But I mean, those two commentators, those Shouty brothers, they came from nothing to suddenly being, you know, on all these videos. They have done a fantastic job in their first year, haven't they?
I can't comment. No, I appreciate you saying that. I think from a personal standpoint, I feel that I've enjoyed doing it, and I think ultimately, and I think Martin will say the same. I can't obviously speak for Martin, but I think he'd say the same, that he's enjoyed it. We've had a good laugh, and we've enjoyed ourselves. So I think ultimately that's kind of it's kind of what matters, I think. But the fact that other people have enjoyed it as well, I think is probably the main thing. You know what I mean? It's I think that, you know, we give it a go and we try. I don't think either of us claim to be good or even remotely professional. But although the one thing I will say, none of us have sworn on video all season. I think that probably deserves some sort of accolade. But no, it has. It's been good fun. It has been good.
Well, as I say, I'll do the plaudits here. I've heard that the management promotion at Berwick are highly delighted with your efforts this season, and quite rightly so. Anyway, let's have a listen to a little bit of. Let's have a listen to the Shouty brothers in their prime, to the background noise of a certain Mr. Harris.
Revs going high, start march away, tapes rise. Who's made the best fist of it? Hans Anderson of Gate 4, making an absolute ripper of a start. Lewis Kerr as well, making a fantastic start. And Chris Harris at the back, but not for long, as the Bomber Command comes charging through to get the better of his teammate. We're in for a treat here, James. Going straight for that dirt line. Chris Harris finding gaps that just don't exist. Full commitment, and is he going to get the better of? He's going for two in one corner.
Unbelievable!
Oh my
move
lord
from
above, Chris Harris! What are you doing to me?
Where did he find that from? He was caught up in all sorts of traffic there, and then he just seemed to find a gap that just wasn't there. And how many times have we said that this season? He got past Hans Andersen, he got past Louis Kerr, and he's going to set off into the sunset once again. Chris Harris, unbelievable!
Yeah, Chris Harris, full commitment, just absolutely class personified, streets ahead of everybody else in this one. The crowd on the grandstand get to their feet. Chris Harris just does not know when he's beaten, James.
He doesn't know when he's beat. I thought I jinxed him, but luckily he came through and proved me right. And
as I said,
absolutely phenomenal.
He's just
stuff from
making
Harris.
it boring when he makes the start, and he didn't make the start there. And it has to be said, Chris Harris entertaining the masses at Shieldfield tonight. Brilliant stuff from him. And really, as soon as he got past his teammate, you knew that Louis Kerr was in trouble. I didn't expect him to do two gladiators in one corner.
Oh, brilliant stuff from Chris Harris, and quite rightly, brilliant. What is brilliant to see a couple of Gladiators fans on their feet and showing their appreciation for a phenomenal race from Chris Harris.
Yeah, I mean, I can only compare Chris Harris' efforts there with a certain Richard Green down at Exeter, who used to get the county ground faithful absolutely revved up with that kind of action.
I think for me, it's been a bit surreal in a way, because I've remember Chris Harris coming as a 16-year-old lad at reserve for I think it was Exeter actually.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I think he was with Trelawney. And I can remember watching him in, and you knew then you were watching someone quite special. And he's became. I'm not just saying this because he was a bandit. He's been a sort of favourite of mine for years.
Yeah.
A rider I've always enjoyed watching. So to actually be able to call the action that he's producing it's a bit weird, to be honest, but it's in a good way.
Well, let's just for the sake of regularity, the one that I ballsed up. Let's let's pop that one up because this is what's the word? Not retribution. Redemption.
Here we go, heat number 8. Revs going high, Star Marshal walks away, green light on. Who's been the best fist of it? It's the Bandits pairing. The Bandits pairing for the first time tonight.
Tell a lie.
Blue from the tapes.
Jonas Knudsen has come in as a reserve switch, and I did not clock that when they came to the tapes. Jonas Knudsen came in and blew in place of Nathan Stoneman. So and it's Theo Piper showing that there's no substitute for experience, and he leads in this race here. Jonas Knudsen tucks into second place. 5-1s is what the Bandits need at this stage of the game, and it's a 5-1 at the moment. Jordan Jenkins not finding himself on the pace at this stage of the game, but inspired team management bringing Jonas Knudsen in place of Nathan Stoneman. Although, to be fair, the way Nathan Stoneman had been riding, you wouldn't have been surprised to see him sitting in second place behind Theo Piper in this one.
Yeah, it has to be said, it's looking like, Jonas is going to end up taking 7 rides tonight. The way he's going is absolutely flying, but there's no doubt about the man in front in red. The Flying Dutchman for the Bandits.
Yeah.
As they go round one corner to go, Bandits on a 5-1. Can they do it? Yes, off the corner.
Yeah.
Bandits banging a 5-1 Bon Jovi time. We're halfway there.
Yeah.
Gear up.
Yeah, here we go. Theo Piper, Jonas Knudsen getting in now. I'd say that constitutes as a big 5-1.
I think in the context of it, it's massive. It's not big, it's massive.
Yeah.
I just love that commentary at the end about the Bon Jovi time, and that I think that constitutes a big 5-1, and I know exactly who you were aiming that at.
Don't know what you're talking about, Paul.
Exactly. Brilliant stuff, and I mean, how good has Jonas been since he came to us?
It's brilliant, absolutely tremendous, like a total revelation, and it came in at the at a time when ultimately the team needed a bit of a lift. I think came in and more than done his job, and I think particularly around Shieldfield, I mean, we saw it. I don't think he maybe only rode 2 meetings.
Yeah.
And I don't think we saw the best of him in those meetings. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean that there's more to come from him. I think once he gets properly dialed in. And I think the one thing I would say, I think that he bound to be near the top of people's wish lists for the 2023 season. But obviously that's all just speculation and whatnot until there's anything concrete or confirmed. But it'd be good to see him back. I think having given the chance. But it's been good.
And as obviously Jonas replaced in that heat Stoneman, but I would argue that, but for the fact that he clipped the back wheel of Harry McGurk against Plymouth in Heat 2, that was looking like he was a man on a mission. I'm sure he would have gone past both of them.
He'd have gone past at least one of them, if not the two of them. And I think Nathan as well, just to touch on him, if points were given on effort, he'd be top of the averages. You know what I mean? It's the effort was there, and you got the impression that prior to him getting hurt, that he was he would maybe get like he was going to get a score, score a few points and put points on the board that maybe because at the end of the night you'd see he was riding his nuts off all night and getting a little to no reward, and it didn't really tell the full story of the effort that he put in. Looking at numbers, he would say that he had a poor spell with us, but that, as I say, it didn't really tell the full story. But I think he's a rider that there's more to come from him, and in particular, around Shieldfield, it was getting better and better every meeting he was riding.
Well, that was the point I was going to make, was that there's obviously, as you pointed out, there's Jonas that has had far more away meetings and has done well than home meetings. But for me, Nathan seems to be one of these riders that he seems to be one of the ones that will go around, will do well around Shieldfield. It's a track that suits him, and let's face it, I don't think Shieldfield suits all the riders out there, does it? I mean, we could talk about, for example, Ricky, who I've seen him score maximums around Shieldfield, but it's been against a team, a Bandits team that hasn't gated that night, and he's made 5 good gates, and he's gone.
He's been a bit of an enigma, I think, at times this year, and I think, but again, I was looking at averages and that, and like on paper, like his scores at home certainly weren't maybe as as I say, on paper weren't maybe as bad as what you maybe would have thought. Looking over the season, scores are pretty respectable in terms of that. But I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, arguably, it was generally one of the better visiting riders that used to come to Shieldfield, but he probably, by even his own admission, probably hasn't had the season that maybe he was perhaps looking for when he signed at the start of the season, and there could be any number of factors for that. But I think I don't think we saw the best of him on a consistent basis times.
I mean, the thing is, with our track in particular, I would say we don't want gators, because it's just going to make it processional. We want riders, both home and the home riders and the away riders, to be those that are willing to to have a go. I mean, we were having a conversation earlier about the I suggested that the best ride I saw last year by an opponent would have to be Sam Masters, when he actually got the better of young Leon.
Yeah, it was,
on that back straight, and that was that was class. It
was a good race, that, to be honest. I can't. I'm trying to think of other sort of riders that came and had visiting riders that came and had a real go. Like in terms of that sort of thing, Masters was certainly one of them. Josh Pecker was always entertaining whenever he came as well. And the likes of Jordan Jenkins and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, but for the opposition, I suppose in the last meeting against Scunthorpe, I suppose it'd be fair to say that both Simon Linebutt and James Wright were very, very entertaining and probably never got the points that they deserved. You know,
the scores that I can't remember what the scores they got, but the one thing that I do know is that the scores that they got wasn't indicative of the effort that they put in, certainly. But Scunthorpe took a bit of a beating that night, and it turned up injuries and they were kind of decimated for the start. So
like I said, they didn't
in front of them, but they didn't disgrace themselves at all.
No, they didn't have. Was it Ryan Douglas?
Ryan Douglas had gotten hurt in the Riders' Championship.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which was earlier in the week, the Wednesday night, I think it was.
Yeah. Anyway, much to maybe Nathan's displeasure, we will have a look at probably the most spectacular crash of the season. I would have to say this. It's not often you see a bike disappear over the third bend.
No, there's a rumor floating about that the bike's still barreling around Shield Field. No, it was a loud one, but I'm sure we'll see it.
Yeah, here we go.
As we just see the riders still digging around, trying to find that sweet spot again.
All these little delays and things like that all eats into the curfew on a night where there's a double header and times of the essence a little bit. But
it certainly does. But it looks like the lads are about to settle down and need to. And starter Marshal Andrew Blair getting them under orders. Rev's about to go high. Green light on. Tapes rise. Who's made a bit? Jordan Jenkins from gate 1, making an absolute rip slot and start. And there's Nathan Stoneman pretty much caught up on Harry McGurk already.
Yeah.
Oh my lord!
Oh. No concern here for Nathan Stoneman. I'm unsure what happened there. Did he just seem to pick up a little bit of grip as he was switching from inside to outside and clip the back end?
Yeah, switching lines going into that fast turn 3 and clipping Harry McGurk's back wheel as he entered turn 3, and just really the bike just rocketing into the foam fence, and God, it got some air going over that safety fence.
Big time. It was an
the fans up on turn 3, I think they were a bit alarmed that the bike was going to catapult further. That was a massive off for Nathan there.
The only plus side, if you like, is that he was completely independent of the bike at the time.
I think that was his biggest thing. He tried to get away from the machine so they could maybe
biggest blessing, as it were. But God, didn't have rocket off with him once it picked up. That was all Chironi.
How many times do we hear riders saying that when the bike takes off like that you're purely a passenger and that you're struggling to get off the machine, and
that's the one saving grace. But he certainly went barreling into. That was just shaping up to be quite an interesting race. He fancied that
he made up the ground massively.
Very, very quickly he made up the ground on Harry McGurk, and he was, he was on a mission there. And
I mean, I suppose for some people that's the thrill of Speedway, isn't it? They come along to see that kind of action. But to me, I don't like seeing that. But I can understand that, if you were putting together, what makes Speedway the spectacular sport that it is, something like that definitely, is something you would need, isn't it?
It's part of it, whether we like it or whether we don't, isn't it? It's part of it, and it is part of the excitement, part of the thrill, I suppose, as well. But certainly that one was one of the more spectacular dismounts, and I'm sure Nathan Stoneman won't forget that one in a hurry. And it was the ironic thing is he probably caught up with Harry McGurk just that little bit quicker than what he was actually maybe anticipating. But it was that loud one. And the main thing was that he was able to get up, albeit wounded. And I think that finished his season off, to be honest. But
unfortunately,
which was a shame, because I say he was starting to you could see that things were starting to come together for him, and unfortunately it ended like that. But that's unfortunately it just sums the season up, really, doesn't it? You know, it sums it up in a nutshell, really. But yeah, it was certainly one of the more spectacular crashes that there's been in recent memory.
Yeah. Talking about spectacular, saving the best till last. In my humble opinion, I mean, you know, Chris Harris goes out and does what Chris Harris does. You know, Leon for me this season has been absolutely sensational. There's only one other British rider that's ever won the under-19 and the under-21 in the same year, and his claim to fame, as I've mentioned before, is that his dad Rob used to ride for the Bandits.
Yeah, he's in good company.
He's also won 3 world titles, but for me the big success story of the season is without doubt Bartosz Blair. So let's have a look at a bit of Bartosz in his prime. We've saved the best till last. Actually, I've not got, and you'll forgive me for this, I've not got his Heat 14 against Bellevue, where he goes past, I think it's Harry McGurk and the young lad from Newcastle area. You remember he does some
Archie Freeman.
That's right. Yeah, I've not got that one. This is against Mildenhall.
All right. Yeah, I know that. Another one.
And for me, Mildenhall. I do like Mildenhall. I think they've got a nice setup there down at the their arena, the Restro Arena. It's very, very friendly. I've only ever been once. Thoroughly enjoyed it, although we got absolutely hammered. But a little bit like your Plymouth fans that can applaud, the riding of Chris Harris. They've got some great riders and certainly, they were. I think they were dealt a really bad hand in the was it the playoff final when they had to field was it 5 or 6 non-attached riders?
I didn't. To be honest, I didn't look into the sort of whys and the whys and the wheres on it, and the reasons for it. But yeah, the team that they were forced to put out, or the team that they did put out, they were on a hiding to nothing, really. Which is unfortunate. It's not the way that anybody wants the season to end, but for anybody. But so it went out with a whimper rather than a bang. But hey, that's again, it's just the way that it is sometimes. And there's not, I dare say that every possible avenue was explored to try and put out the best team that they could. So just the way it goes, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look at Mr. Bartosz Blair in action, because he is. He is. I suppose we should call him Box Office Blair as well, shouldn't we?
That's the odd gets right.
Sorry. I was just about to hit play, and you're busy talking.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
No. You're fine. Here we go.
Is Luke Muff, is it? Luke Muff of yellow. Gate 4. So, there's nothing a given in this one, but you can bet your bottom dollar the Box Office Blair will be doing absolutely everything to throw the proverbial at the Venn Tiger Man, should he need it.
Yeah, it's we've been treated to some fantastic action here tonight.
We really have.
And National League Speedway, it's pretty bloody entertaining.
It really is, and you only hope from a Bullet's perspective that Greg's dug deep into his toolbox, reached out and found a start out of somewhere and can just rip Snort away from the start, get his wheels in line. But we're about to find out in this one, James. Revs going high, Star Marshal away, tapes rise. Who's made the best fist of it? It's Alex Spooner in white, but Ben Rathbone on the inside's made a brilliant start. Cunny block the move of Alex Spooner, and here comes Box Office as well.
Yeah, Ben Rathbone making a rip snorting start there, getting the better of Alex Spooner, and Greg Blair is in third place at the moment. A 4-2 of the Bullets as things stand at the moment, but you just know that Greg Blair's going to throw absolutely everything that he has at Alex.
Here
Spooner.
comes Blair.
Here comes Greg Blair going for the big
Nothing
blast.
quite there for Blair.
Not quite getting there. Alex Spooner hangs on into second place. Here it comes again, round bend 1 and 2. 2 laps to go.
There's
Blair
Blair
comes
trying
round
to
to the inside.
Can he make it work on the corner? He's done him.
Bullets on a 5-1, which means that if it stays like this, or at least the worst they can do is a draw tonight. Absolute crucial.
My goodness.
Blair all out of shape. What on earth are you doing, Greg Blair? But Ben Rathbone out in front, looking so fast and so stylish. And if it stays like this, he's going to be the man of the match for me tonight. Ben Rathbone's been absolutely
Blair
tremendous.
bucking and rearing all over the shop, managing to stay on the bicycle.
High, wide and handsome indeed is Greg Blair.
Yes.
And
Ben Rathbone's stealing a march.
yeah, Ben Rathbone. Reserve switch. What an astute bit of team management that was.
It really was, and hats off to him. He made a brilliant start, rode a clever first and second bend, and well, you said it before the race. If there was a man that you needed to do the business when it mattered, it was box office, and he duly delivered. He was more out of shape than Zebedee at times, but he done the business, and I would say that he's pretty chuffed with that one.
I don't know.
Absolutely buzzing.
Does he look chuffed to you?
Just a bit. And the T-sider, Ben Rathbone behind him.
I tell you, for me tonight, Ben Rathbone's been man of the match for me tonight.
I can't go against that, you know. And of course, one race to go.
Crucial.
The Bullets have put themselves in a fantastic driving seat in this one.
They really have. 44, 40, one race to go. Which way is it going to go? We'll find out very, very shortly.
Obviously from Greg, and great commentary as well. It's it's so good to listen to that stuff again. For me, the I suppose for Bandit of the Year, for me personally, it came down between Chris and Bomber and Leon, and for me, it had to be Leon for his for what he's done, unprecedented to win those 2 titles.
Yeah, huge achievement for him, certainly. And, I think there was probably a little bit of pressure on his shoulders to at least maintain the season that he'd had, like the year previous.
Yeah.
And if not to better it, which was always going to take a bit of doing, but he's went out there and he's done it, and he's proved himself to be, capable of mixing it with anybody, and you just feel that he's on the verge of something quite spectacular, to be honest. And it's good to see. It's obviously good for it's good for him, it's good for British Speedway, and it's obviously good for Berwick as well. So long may that continue.
Personally, I Leon might sort of, when I next see him, he might say you're a clown. But I would say I would have liked to have seen him in the Bullets team, and the Bandits and the Wolves this year.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think that he's. I can see what you're saying. I don't know if I necessarily
from a Bandits fan point of view of wanting to see the Bandits, the Bullets, and the whole Berwick thing. Having our top riders riding against some of the best in the National Development League.
Yeah, I can understand the theory, but I think from Leon's standpoint, I think that that when the call came from the Wolves, which meant he had to give up his Bullets commitments, I think it was probably too good an opportunity to pass up. And I think that you can see the progression in him since he's went to Wolves. And again, his scores at Wolves haven't always been indicative of the effort that he's put in. But again, you get the impression that, or you got the impression that, one of these nights it was going to just click into place for him. And all of a sudden, a 2-point haul would become an 8-point haul, which it did. Yeah, it did. And a lot of the time it shows you that there isn't a lot of difference between the two, such as the fine margins that these guys are dealing with. But yeah, I think I'd like to think that he'd be back in the Wolves team for next year. I think he's done enough there to warrant that, and I think Wolves is a good fit for him. You know, and again, you only have to look at the sort of track record of the riders that have went through Wolverhampton, and we've already spoken about one of them.
Yes.
That you know, that it's a good place for guys to develop. They tend to be quite loyal to their riders as well, and try and bring out the best in them. And I think I think it was like arguably the best move for him at the time. And again, you can't. I don't think any Berwick fans would have stood in would have wanted to have stood in his way in terms of his progress. So. I think it was. I understand entirely what you're saying, but I think that at that particular point in his career, I think that was the move to do. So, and it's paying off now, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think certainly as far as Leon's concerned, you know, he's got Sam Masters there at Wolves, and I know there's quite a good friendship there, isn't there? I mean, apparently when it came to one of his meetings on the continent, Sam actually lent him his bike.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that's
yeah, it's class, to be honest.
Yeah.
That it would do that for him.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that, you know, that Leon, you know, we tend to forget, because he's been at Berwick, since he was he's been associated with Berwick for that long. You tend to forget how young he is. You know, and I think that, you know, to be at the stage that he's at now, at the age that he's at, you know, there's plenty more to come from him, and I think ultimately it's sort of proved that he's got the sort of the level of commitment for it, and the sort of, you know, I think ultimately a lot of it was on him, you know, to nurture that. And hopefully, with, you know, you can see as well, like the one thing I've sort of noticed in him, particularly this year, it's probably always been there, but I noticed it particularly this year, when he's riding for Berwick, you know, not that he doesn't want to do well when he rides for anybody else, but you can see that it seems to matter that little bit more to him, I think. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, can be a blessing and a curse. It can be, you know, it can be channeled in the wrong way as well. But I think he's on the whole, he's had a great season, I think, and I hope that, you know, he realizes how good a season he's had. You know, I hope he doesn't sort of turn around and say that he's been disappointed that things could have been better or like that, because I think ultimately he has had a phenomenal season, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, you know, some of his guest bookings, certainly in the Championship. I remember him riding for Plymouth at Armadale, and he was top scorer.
It was brilliant that night. It was, to be honest, he was probably Plymouth's best rider. Obviously, he was top scorer, but, you know, on the night he was their best rider, and I can't remember if Plymouth almost won that meeting.
They did,
yeah. You know, he was very much part and parcel of the reason for that. You know, he rode exceptionally well, and arguably he scored more points than the guy he was replacing. To be fair, but that's sometimes just the way it goes anyway, I guess. But yeah, no, he's had a good season. I think he's cracked a lot of places that he was scoring points at, a lot of places that you maybe wouldn't expect him to, and things that are scoring well, places that, you know, he was going, and he made that second heat leader spot his own, but ultimately that maybe wasn't in the aim for this season, you know. And on any other season, he'd probably end up as number one.
Yes. Yeah. Looking at the bullets then, my ride of the season, obviously Bartosz, but I would say in a very strong second would be Ace. He's been nothing short of sensational, and we've had this conversation many a time about, you know, and for me the problem is if we don't put him in the bandits 1 to 7 at reserve, somebody else might come along and say, "Here you go, have the number 7 race jacket." Yeah,
I think. I mean, you know my thoughts on it. I feel that if it ends up that there's times on his side, you know, he's still young enough. He's got all the time in the world to progress at his own pace. I think that when you look at his scores in the National League, he's had a brilliant first season, absolutely, and it far and away exceeded my expectations of him for the year. I think many other people as well.
Yeah.
In terms of for putting him in the championship side next year, it'll depend on what the setup is. If it's maybe compulsory for a 2-point rider to be in, I don't know what the setup will be.
Yep.
Not privy to that, but if that is the case, then it's probably a no-brainer to have him in. However, if it's not, it's not that I don't think he's good enough. I do think he's good enough. I think that there's just not that immediate, that sort of urgency to do it. I don't think, but ultimately, I'll be quite happy if he comes in and blows everybody away.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to be proved wrong, but I just feel that it could end up doing more harm than good. And we've seen it with riders in the past that get that chance and they struggle and it shatters their confidence.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, those riders don't recover from that. So I think if it's going to happen, I think it should happen sort of almost organically. And you only have to look at riders like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, riders that score pretty well, pretty consistently in the National Development League. How many of those guys score really well consistently in the championship?
It's one of the subjects that friend of ours, Paul Bowen, has discussed, hasn't he? The discrepancy.
There is a gulf between it, and you only need to look at someone like say Jordan Jenkins, Jason Edwards are probably the two exceptions that I can think of immediately.
Yeah.
Those guys, not that they're adverse to the odd duff meeting at championship level as every rider is.
Yeah.
But there's guys like Harry McGurk, for example, being one of them.
I'm
picking on him specifically. No. But he scores in the National League, very good, very consistent. But when he got the call to ride for Plymouth, he looked like a rider when he rode at Berwick that night. The night that Nathan Stoneman unfortunately came a cropper. He looked like a rider whose confidence was shot.
Yeah.
At that level, but ultimately, again, it's one of those things that, if it was double, if say Spiper was doubling up or whatever, then he can have the bullets meetings to gain his confidence back. It should be that, but I think at this stage, he should be using those meetings to progress as he has done this year, build on that, and then move forward from there. But ultimately, time will tell. And irrespective of what happens, whether he's in the side or not, he's got a massive future ahead of him. Nuclear injuries. He's been an absolute revelation this year.
Yeah. I suppose another example of what you're talking about, the discrepancy between the Development League and Championship, would be Kyle Bickley himself,
Yeah.
I think, he's had some fantastic meetings for Berwick. I remember him passing Craig Cook.
Yeah. His, when you look at his, again, when I was doing the end of season stuff for all the riders, his numbers and statistics for the Bullets are absolutely phenomenal. Just unbelievable. It's eye-watering. You know what I mean? When you see it, just how good he has been for the Bullets. Couldn't be much better. You know what I mean? Nigh on perfect for them. Particularly at home, it was dynamite.
Yes.
And it was the top man away from home as well. But it's one of those that, it was a strange one because he did have his odd flashes of brilliance at for the Bandits, as you say, passing Craig Cook that night was brilliant. I've never seen him ride as well, and then other nights he sort of tended to struggle a little bit. And again, there was much said about it at the time, but and he maybe didn't see it this way, but he did look like a rider that was down on confidence. And Speedway is a confidence game, and there's some riders, are it's a total cliche, but some riders are a total, the total definition of a confidence rider. And I think it's hard. I don't know if it's maybe easier for us to see it because we're from the outside looking in, and you can see it. Whereas when riders are in the sort of zone, there's maybe this sort of tunnel vision, as it were, and then maybe don't sort of see it or whatever. But I don't know. But yeah, it is a good example of it. A rider that's not that he's had like not decent meeting, but largely did struggle. And then once he lost his team place at Berwick, he kind of dotted about his, he ended up at Newcastle. I don't even think he turned a wheel for Newcastle before they closed the doors. And then ended up at Redcar and didn't see out the season there either. So, I mean, the one thing I will say for Kyle Bickley, 2023 is a massive year for him. Yeah. In terms of where he's going to end up, but in terms of the progress in his career, it's a big year for the lad. So it will be interesting. Again, he's a rider with all the tools to make it happen for him, and a good setup around him and good machinery and things like that. So it's a big year for him. But he's the sort of probably the epitome of what you're talking about, though, in terms of that discrepancy between the two leagues, and it's a tough one. It is a real tough one to call. And again, in terms of the Ace Piper thing, I can see arguments for. I could totally see arguments for strike while the iron's hot. But even at National League level, those guys that are scoring regular, decent points at Championship are virtually unbeatable at National League level. And I think Ace is again, no disrespect to him whatsoever. I think he's had a fine first season, but I think maybe his next season is to maybe look to be at that dominant level. And then I think that's maybe when they can look at that. But I don't know, that's just my thoughts on it. And again, and again, don't get me wrong. If he was put into the Bandits team, he would have my full support.
Yes, yeah,
right. Yeah. But yeah, But then to give you an idea how little I know, I thought that at the start of this year it was a year too early, possibly for National League, and look what happened. So, it just shows what little I know. But there's no doubt that the lad's done well, and I think he's been. For the Bullets, he gets the nod for me for Bullets Rider of the Year, I think.
Wow. Yes.
To be honest, he's far away and exceeded expectations. And then I think people expected, once he came out of the reserve spot for him, his scoring to, plateau a little bit. But in fairness to him, he held on, virtually to almost a third heat leader spot.
Yes.
Which takes a bit of doing, so. Yeah, no, the lad's done well, so. He's a precious talent, and I think that you need to allow that to nurture organically in order to bring it the best.
Yeah, I mean, the one good thing, of course, about both Ace and Steen is that they've got a dad and a mum who are steeped in Speedway history, and there's no way that Theo is gonna let either of them go down. He's going to be putting them in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like say, Theo Piper is one of those guys that, he's always been in terms of any time he's ridden for the Bandits, he's generally been solid and dependable.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that, in the mold of somebody like Kevin Doolan, where he was always worth a few extra points for other people just through the advice that he was able to give to people.
Yes.
Just having been an experienced hand. So yeah, he's always a handy guy to have around. And in terms of a mentor for those two young lads, that they're not going to have much better than that.
Okay, so we move on to the final and obviously the greatest prize of the season, and that is Loudest Shirt.
Oh, you win that all day long.
So here we are coming into the third bend, and I'm wearing this brightly coloured shirt for the man who's normally standing there with another brightly coloured shirt. This, I would say, is probably the fastest part of the track. You're coming in here with a hell of a rate of knots, and you've got this banking to run up when you're coming in. So you want to come in here just off where, at that dip there, and you've got a lot of options. You can do what Theo Piper's been doing. He cuts it down onto the white line, and he can usually build up enough speed to get yourself out the corner and get into first place. Or you can do what Bummer does, or myself, and run it away up round the fence and keep that momentum going and come off the corner onto the straight, again carrying a lot of speed. So your options, you've pretty much got to decide what you want to do when you're halfway along the straight, who's behind you or who's in front of you. But 9 times out of 10 you'll see boys wanting to chase the dirt up against the fence, and looking at it, it does look like there's going to be a bit of material just coming out the fourth bend, which we'll go and have a little look at just now.
No, I think I've got serious competition there. I think for me, it's Bartosz for the double right of the season.
And loudest shirt. Nah, nobody does shirts louder than you, Paul.
Oh, thank you.
You've got that. You've got the market covered there.
Okay. Listen, James, I'm going to say cheerio, and we're going to look forward to a bit of fun. Now, whereabouts in Berwick is the is the award ceremony? It's not the Black and Gold, is it? It's next to Asda's
video rooms, which I believe is next to Asda, or just up from Asda. So not a place I've ever been, so I'm looking forward to going. It'll be a bit of a mad dash from work, but that'll be fine. Yeah. It'll be good. We'll be there, and we'll be on the soft drinks, unfortunately, but that's the hazards of life. But we'll be there, and as I say, we've done the end of season rider reviews that Steve Hayward's kindly offered to read out. So
I'm going to say, I believe he's prepared a speech of more than 3,000 words. He's been a busy boy.
He's a busy lad. He's a busy boy. So we're going to have to buy him a beer when we get there just to keep him lubricated. But he'll be fine. Oh, Steve does a cracking job, and I'm sure he'll be a great master of ceremonies, as he always is at these things. So, yeah, it should be a good night. Looking forward to it, and who knows, there might be a bit of team news at it as well, with any luck for next season. But I don't know. That's purely speculation on my part. I don't know whether there is.
As long as we've got the Shouty brothers next year, that's all that matters. That's the number one team to get in place.
We'll get a deal. We'll get a deal thrashed out for that. I'm sure.
Exactly. Okay, James. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks very much.
See you Friday.
Yeah, see you Friday. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.